I'm Phil. I'm Neilden.
I'm Razz.
I'm gonna bust his ass.
I'm Brandon.
Slide jobs by the dozen out here.
Hello, this is Thomas.
Here. Pisser.
I'm John.
Sit down the back straight away for the final time.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls,
This is the Dirty Slider Podcast. Sit down, buckle up, and hang on. It's about to get rough.
Welcome, Dirty Slider Nation, to episode 39 of the Dirty Sliders Podcast. We got the trio here this week, myself, Phil, and Raz. We are ready, rocking, and ready to have arguments with each other, but I love you, brothers, even if you're wrong. So, this week we're going to have a couple of drinks, we're going to do a little talking, a little less talking, but at the end of the day, hopefully you guys enjoy the show, you share it with your friends, even if we're a bunch of jackasses. Doesn't matter. Come along for the ride, enjoy the show. If you like it, give us a thumbs up. If you don't, give us a thumbs down. If you want us to talk about something in particular, let us know. But without further ado, we're going to get to the amazing, the beautiful, the bald Mr. Raz Barlow.
Sexy.
Yeah, if you like us, hit the thumbs up. If you don't like us, hit that thumbs down twice. Forewarned is forearmed. I started ahead of time, so this is my second one.
Yeah.
He's on his second bottle.
Yeah.
Tomorrow's going to be a bad day for Raz.
It can't start any worse than this morning did. I had a mishap with my clippers this morning. You got half my head shaved and they quit. I'm like, oh, hey, I got to go to work. Anyway, little bit of follow-up from the discussion that Phil and I had last week. I'm not going to get into names, but if y'all watched last week's episode, we showed the video where the driver drove reverse direction halfway around the track to drive all the way up onto the hood of another car. That track has suspended him indefinitely for his actions, which I think is a good move. And I hope more tracks follow that example.
Oh, for sure. Without doubt.
We talked about it a little bit last week. Tracks have a vested interest in that kind of drama. That kind of drama, especially when it hits social media, is good for the track, whether you like it or not. It brings eyeballs to the track. So that's why, tracks that have that kind of mayhem, the Madhouse is a great example. The stands are packed. So, yeah, I guess we're just idiots. We don't know what we're talking.
Nope. Well, I didn't get my 2 cents in last week. And my thing is, if you're going to do it, it needs to be mutual combat on the front stretch.
Yeah, we got into that.
If one goes running to the pits, it's over.
Yeah, we got into that a little bit in last week's episode. Basically, I think Chili Bowl has what I think is the right policy, which is you're going to fight. You got between turn 4 and the starting line. Get out of the car, get it handled. No crew members on the track at Chili Bowl. It's all officials and photographers in the infield. And they don't, in that scenario, don't allow anybody to come on the track. Say when they're done, they'll come back over here. Their stated reason for that policy is if you fight in the pits, they can't control it. The pits in Chili Bowl are very crowded. There are,
for sure,
not hundreds of people. There are thousands of people back there. And 2 or 3 years ago, I forget, I watched a fight happen back there, and the guy slipped and fell, got his arm tangled up in the Nerf bar on the race car, and broke his arm as the fight progressed. So, I mean, they're right. It gets uncontrollable back there real quick. Nobody has taken him up on that offer since they instituted that policy that I'm aware of. But I don't think it's a bad way to go.
Well, and that's the thing, is it's going to keep the unwanted fights to a minimum, if not cancel. But if you just got 2 guys that want to go at it and are tearing equipment up left and right, they'll end up on the front stretch. They'll get sick of it and they'll end up there.
I think you're right. It's just coincidental that where they want them to fight is right in front of the 2 biggest grandstands.
Right in front of your grandstands. It's where the closest officials are. It's where the closest officials are. That's why.
So anyway, I guess we probably should touch a little bit on the 604 late model incident at Sonoya. By now, that video is viral, I'm sure. But everybody who's watching us right now has seen that video.
Yeah, that was pretty wild.
Fortunately, nobody was
So for those
seriously
that
in.
haven't, late model coming out of 4, just climbed the wall, and the nose went into the catch fence, and there was at least 3 spectators at the catch fence. And
Who
they were
got-
quickly removed from the area of the catch fence.
They got launched.
And two of them got rides on the plus bus and went to the hospital, checked and released.
I never not laugh.
Yeah, we could thank Andy
And folks, he's
Stafford.
not laughing at the people. He's laughing at the plus bus. He's laughing about the plus bus. We don't ever
There
like
go
see
Andy
anybody
Staff.
get hurt.
Yeah, thank you, Andy Stapp. He gave us that one, and I'm forever going to use it.
Oh,
But-
for sure.
Checked and released, not seriously injured. If you watch the latest Hunt the Front video, at one point in that video, they're filming from the exact spot where that happened. Not when it happened, but earlier on in the race program. And so you can see it's a fairly confined area. There's nowhere really to go if a car comes along. It is on the spectator side of the track. It's not the pit side. So I suspect those were spectators who got up on the fence. And there's a sign on that fence that you can pick out during that video that says, "Stay back from fence." And we've all been at racetracks, and they will tell you the same thing. Get back, get away from the fence, get away from the fence, get away from the fence. If a 3,000+ pound race car hits that chain link and cable catch fence, that fence is going to move an amazing amount, probably 6 to 10 feet. And it's going to hit whoever is standing on it with full force. A dirt late model going at Mach Jesus.
It's going to launch people.
Not quite as fast as Cody Ware hit that tire barrier at Chicago, but pretty fast.
And then you have
Well-
to sit there for a while.
Well, back to that thing there is it's the rule of squishy. When you're standing next to a fence and something less squishy than you is going to hit that fence, you're going to lose.
Yeah, and I've seen criticisms of that fence. Well, that fence wouldn't stop a German Shepherd. Okay. Catch fences are not designed to be immovable objects. They are, by design, the exact opposite. They're supposed to flex. They're supposed to absorb energy. They're supposed to throw that car back out onto the racetrack. And if you built something strong enough to where it didn't move, if you're standing a foot away from
It's
it,
called a wall.
yeah, it will. You'll destroy race cars and you'll destroy drivers. So the catch fence worked the way it was supposed to. So no fault on Sonoya Raceway. They have the facility, set up the way it was supposed to be. I guess it took down some poles, but again, that's how it's supposed to work.
That's part of it. It's absorbing the energy.
Well, it's dispersing the energy. Exactly. It's not, you're not having, same thing as they found out with the safer barriers. They found out, that foam, that space and that foam in there absorbed how much energy. Well, somebody who's a lot smarter than us figured it out and said, hey, we're going to stop killing drivers if we do this.
Yeah.
I mean, the basic premise is just like a baseball mitt.
Mhm.
You can palm a baseball, or you
Oh, and
can
it
catch
hurts.
a mitt that gives. It's the same thing with the catch fence. Maybe it's time that racetracks start double fencing. I mean, back at the mud tracks, back in Florida, we had to do it because we had the same thing, people up on the rails, right against the fence, and, the trucks got faster. They started jumping out of the holes and getting on top of the fence, on top of the cables. So we ended up having to put a secondary fence for the spectators back, 8 foot.
Do you guys remember the NASCAR race? Oh, I don't know how many years ago that a fan was actually climbed up and was sitting on top of the fence.
Yeah.
So, and you know what? Here's the thing: is
Alcohol.
when people are doing stuff like that, you can't.
It's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, when people are doing stuff like that, there's signs. You hear announcers. I don't know if it's Sonora. They said there's not, but you hear announcers step back from the fence, get back from the fence, stay away from the fence. I mean, at what point? I used to say this in racing: is at what point do you just kind of be like, we're giving you the warnings.
Darwin.
We've done everything we can. If you're going to be a dumbass and stand there, FAFO.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Darwin's
it's
going to win.
The rule of natural selection.
Exactly. Can't
I
fix
mean, I
stupid,
remember-
and stupid
I remember
hurts.
Daytona, you used to be able to walk right up to the catch fence. And it was awesome. You'd walk right up to it as the cars come by at 200 mile an hour. And it was something to behold. I believe now they have a double fence there too.
I don't know, but yeah.
But I know, like California, you couldn't even get up to it.
One of the coolest things was during the race at Fontana. I had to go. I think bathroom. I was underneath. I was underneath the grandstands, and underneath the grandstands when those cars went by at speed was one of the coolest sounds I've ever heard in my life.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That was a phenomenal sound.
That no one will hear again.
Nope. Not even on a short track.
If you believe that track's coming back as a short track,
yeah, it's not coming back as a short track.
You can take a look at the pictures and go, no way.
Nope.
They're leaving that what little bit's left of that track standing just as a gesture, and it's going to be Amazon warehouse here real soon.
Yep.
Well, our main topic that we agreed to discuss was Frank Monroe is the principal for Western States. Came up with a online statement, rant, whatever you want to call it, basically bemoaning the current state of dwarf cars. So I'm going to read it, and then the three of us can discuss it. It says, this is from the Western States Dwarf Car Association webpage from Frank Monroe. 30 years and still going strong. 31 years ago, I had a vision to bring dwarf cars across the country together under one set of rules. Our first event was held in Marysville, California at Twin City Speedways. We had 96 cars in one division. There was a lot of good racing, and in NorCal fashion, they put on a hell of a party. As drivers were leaving the track, myself and my wife Jan thanked everyone for coming, no matter how they did on the track. They said it was a great idea, and we had a great time. And they kept coming back. Our whole goal was to have a good time and have a fair competitive racing. We started with 5 rules. The following year, we hosted 3 national events, one at Ventura Speedway, one in Skagit, Washington, and back at Marysville for the final. From there, the sport grew. We currently have 7 national events in the WSDCA area and 4 national events in the Central States area. As the sport grew, every promoter wanted to have these little cars racing at their racetrack. The cars were fast, and it was pretty affordable to get into the sport. As the cost of everything went up, so did the cost of building a dwarf car. Every year at our annual meeting held in December in Reno, all the leaders of dwarf car clubs would meet. At this morning, we would lay out the schedule for the following year and discuss any rule changes. First thing on our agenda was always safety. Secondly, containing the rising cost of our sport. It was our goal to never make a rule at that meeting that would immediately affect the cost of racing a dwarf. The following season, any major rule changes would typically be implemented next year. One of the big factors of controlling how much horsepower could be put down the track was our tire rule. Hoosier Tire worked with us to build a tire that was hard enough and would last. One of the biggest items we face now is the cost of motors. We've tried to implement rules that would keep motors as stock as possible and limit high-dollar parts. If you go out and buy a stock motor out of a bike, those motors will normally last up to 3 seasons in a dwarf car, and you can sell it for almost as much as you paid for it. I know a lot of racers are spending a lot of money on having motors built. From what I've seen of these motors, they don't last 10 races, and some blow up at the very first race. If you look at the stats over the last 30 years, a lot of our champions have won with stock motors right out of a bike. I hit the stupid ones.
Almost stock.
I didn't see you hit yourself in the head.
I believe as the president and leader of our club, it is our duty to help control the cost of our sport. If we don't, we will slowly lose drivers who just can't afford to race a dwarf car anymore. As we lose car count, track promoters will lose interest in our division. So I'm just asking, just take a minute and think about what I've said. When you go to the track next week, just look at other drivers that have bought used cars, old cars that don't have the budget to keep racing if the price continues to soar, and how can we control the rising cost of motors? Do you want to see dwarf cars racing in a track in the future near you? Well, I do, and I think it's an awesome class with the nostalgia of the cars, and the speed of the cars is definitely impressive. So no matter where you race or what rules you race under, support your local club and tracks. Maybe even thank them once in a while for the thankless job they do every week, and thank you everyone for supporting dwarf cars. Hopefully I'll see you at a track down the road, Frank. So I'm going to start this off with, I think dwarf cars are amazing. I think they're one of the coolest classes around. They put on some of the best racing. They are real race cars. They're smaller than a lot of race cars, but they are real race cars through and through. Also, I want to give a shout out to Frank Monroe for what he has done up to this point for this sport with organizing Western States and organizing nationals. He's done a lot. So has Jan. But said, I call out some bullshit in some of the things he said. The one thing he calls out as far as the high cost of racing is motors. Well, guess what Frank Monroe doesn't build? He doesn't build motors. What does Frank Monroe build? Frank Monroe builds chassis, and Frank Monroe controls the contract with Hoosier to set the price on tires. What else does he control? He controls sponsors for the nationals. What does he control? He controls purses. He controls entry fees. He controls every cost of the Western States with the exception of motors. So he's calling out the one thing he doesn't control. The cost, in my opinion, I've said this for 15 years now? At least 10 years. The cost of a chassis for a dwarf car is ridiculous. Has been for years. They're getting $6,500, $7,000 for a bare chassis for a dwarf car. When you can get a sprint car for the same price. I mean, what the hell? I defer to you two. That'll start us off. I got a couple other points I want to make, and we'll see.
Well, I mean, when I built the first dwarf car brand new, I bought all the parts and I put it together, and I was still in that car $24,000. And I assembled the car myself. Now, granted, back then, what was it? There was an extra $1,000 charge to have the manufacturer put the car together. But I mean, I was in the car $24,000, and we joked, Raz, you and I joked then. I was like, yeah, for $24,000, I could have had a front running local modified. Racing by nature is expensive, but yeah, it's difficult because now I think I heard the price of a brand new dwarf car. Now, mind you, been out of it for a while, but it's over $30,000 now. Is that correct?
I'm not going to argue with it. I think that's what some of them get. I know the cost of a DNR chassis went up. The cost of an M&M chassis went up. I don't know about a B&B, but I would assume that they're keeping up with the other manufacturers, so their prices probably went up too.
Well, and to sit there and say that motors,
other chassis manufacturers, I'm not calling, but I know for your race program, because Neilden, both were heavily involved in your race program. You ran a basically stock ZX10. It was blueprinted, by a good friend of ours, but that thing was stock. There was nothing else to it.
No, there was not that. But to call out the motors when we're looking at, getting close to $30,000, let's just say for argument's sake, $30,000, to call out just the motor as the reason for the high cost, I gotta agree with you. It's not. I mean, I bought my motors for what, $1,800, and I ran 4 to 5 seasons on each motor.
Well, and the most
I just pulled up DNR. I just pulled up DNR chassis, May 7th, a 2025 DNR tall deck sedan, tabbed and bracketed, is $6,900.
$7,000.
And that's just a tabbed and bracketed.
That's without a body.
No body. Install your own body. Install your own drivetrain. Install your own suspension. Install everything.
So to call out the motor is not. To call out the motor is not the motor that's expensive.
You can buy a Maxim chassis, what they call a chassis kit, which is going to be chassis, tabbed and bracketed, Nerf bars, bumpers, body panels for, I think, $62, if I'm not mistaken. So you get more, for less, in my opinion.
Big boy.
Granted, the expensive part of a sprint car is not the chassis. It is the motor.
No, it's the motor.
No.
And that one, it is the motor. But in the situation where Frank called out the motor is the problem, I don't think so. I mean, when we were looking at putting a quick change in our car, to switch our car over to a quick change, I was looking at $5,000 to switch
And let's-
for a dwarf car quick change?
Let's talk about the hypocrisy of Frank Monroe and quick changes, because we, when I say we, the dwarf car community, when it came to the Reno meetings, we were pushing to have quick change rear ends legalized because it was getting harder and harder to find the Toyota rear ends, and a quick change is once you buy it, granted it's more expensive up front, but once you buy it, it's cheaper to run. The bearings were cheaper, the axles were cheaper. You could change
The gears were cheaper.
You could change gears to run different tracks. And Frank Monroe said, there's no way I'm going to let quick change rear ends run while I'm sitting on all these Toyota third members. Until I sell those off, it's not. Those words got said. So he's a hypocrite. He looked after his own business interests and wouldn't allow something that was good for the dwarf car community because it would have been bad for his business. He was sitting on inventory. He wanted to sell it off.
Mm-hmm.
That's, yeah.
So, I mean, I agree that he's done a lot of good for the community. But I mean, a hypocrite's a hypocrite, and I'm not going to say a hypocrite in a necessarily bad way, because he's a business owner at the end of the day, trying to make a living and trying to support himself.
Yeah, but he has his business
But at the
owner.
same time, it's like, are you being fair? Are you switching your hats, or are you keeping your business hat on?
Yeah, he has a business owner hat. And he has a race promoter, race director, series or whatever title you want to give him hat that he has to wear. And it's a hard line to tread, but I don't think he treaded well in that case. Now quick changes are kind of the norm in that class. I think they've proven that they're appropriate. I think one of the things I love about dwarf car racing is while the initial expense to get into that class is as expensive as any other car. I mean, you could put a low buck sprint car together, like a 305 sprint car, for what you could build a dwarf car. You could put a really nice sport mod together for what you could build a dwarf car for, and you could put a decent A mod together for that same money. Same with a stock car. You could be in a race car for that same amount of money, but every one of those cars on a weekly basis is more expensive to run than a dwarf car is. If you run, I will agree with him that you don't need a built motor. The thing with with a stock motor right out of a sport bike, everybody's running, pretty much 1,000 cc's. 1,200 is allowed, but most people run the 1,000. And most people run the GSX-R 1000. And these Japanese sport bike manufacturers are wringing these motors necks. They are engineered to get the maximum power out of them. We have a hard time improving on what they've already done. Now, granted, there's small gains to be made if you really want to get down into the weeds, but you could run a stock bike right out of the bike, stock motor right out of the bike, put it in a dwarf car, and you're going to be competitive. It's you may not get that that last little 5%, but you're going to be competitive. So
You'll run mid pack if you're a decent driver.
Yeah, and you could even run up front if you're a good driver.
Yep.
But
you remember Sean said would. Oops, sorry. Go ahead, Marshall. Or Razz.
No,
sorry.
No, go right ahead. Go right ahead.
Wait, you remember Sean when he was trying to talk us into getting a GSXR, and because we were running the ZX10, and I asked him why. I mean, I point blank asked him. He goes, I can't. He goes, there's nothing I can do with the ZX10. They've already done everything. I can't get any more horsepower out of that motor without making you illegal. But you get the GSXR, there's things I can do to that fit within the rules package you guys have, and I can get you easily horsepower, and you're gonna make it's gonna make a difference for you. You remember we had that conversation because he had that GSXR for us. He goes, I got one right there. Let's put that one in your motor in your car.
Yeah, and like I said, they run great. If you simply change the rules to make it a no touch, pull it out of the bike, and you can't do a thing to it, then I think that would help. But racers are going to be racers, and they're always going to try to look for that extra edge. We all know of different scenarios where people were taking secondary butterflies and removing them, and so that you get more airflow, and taking a intake cam and putting an exhaust cam on the intake side, and getting more power out that way. Running
peeling head gaskets
to get extra compression. There's gains to be made if someone wants to do that. And we reached out to a well-known West Coast engine builder to come on the show and talk about it, and he was willing to. He just wasn't available. And I also reached out to, full disclosure, I reached out to Frank Monroe to come on this podcast and discuss what he had said, and never got a response from him. He didn't say no, I won't come on. I never got a response. So I don't rise to the level of getting his attention nowadays anymore. I think the restrictive rules that they currently have in Western states regarding engines, meaning they haven't approved enough new engines. And because they haven't approved enough new engines, everybody's working on the older engines, and they're getting scarcer and scarcer. And because everybody's working on the same engine, they've already figured that platform out. They know how to cheat it up. But I mean, the motor that Phil paid $1,800 for, guys are paying out of the bike are paying $4,000 or $5,000 for now.
And they're motors with high mileage. Now they're considered high mileage motors. So the first thing they're doing is they're going through them.
According to the latest Western States information, which Phil just shared this with us tonight, was considering approving up to 2024 engines, which, if that's the case, that will bring a lot of the pressure off, and I think will help with the cost of motorcycle engines to put in these cars.
I'll read what it says. It talks about the rule package, and then it says at the bottom, in progress, allowing new motors for 2026 season up to 2024 model years, parentheses, currently researching Suzuki other models to be approved as testing is completed, close parentheses, details to follow, 100% stock and working on new rules with testing. So 100% stock. Does that mean they're going to now not allow flashing the computers? Because remember, when we were running, that was a big thing. Flashing the computers, you were allowed to do it. So you could change your fuel curve, your spark curve, rev limiter. Guys were changing their rev limiters and all that stuff.
Well, was it the GSX-R motor that wouldn't run out of the bike unless you reflash the computer?
I believe that's what it was. I believe that's why they did it, because it had, what was it? The
security.
It was a security, something with the security in it, or it would, because it didn't have it wasn't because it didn't have the speed sensor on it, so they had to reflash the computer to take that off, because we don't have speed sensors on a Dwarf car because traction control. Or no, it was traction control. That's what it was.
And then of all the approved,
I just pulled up the specs on an 08. On an 08 ZX10, it's listed at 188 horsepower. With over 200 with ram air, we don't really care about that. We're worried about crank. The 2024 GSX-R 1000 is 199. So you're talking 11 horsepower difference stock to stock. Which we know horsepower is not what is the limiting factor in dwarf cars being quick. It's traction.
Right.
Well, and the ZX10 built,
is it hooked up enough?
The ZX10 built more power down low, and the GSX-R built more power up high. So they're different power curves.
Yeah.
But
And the R1 just sounded good.
Oh,
that R1 sounded great. I love that thing.
It sounded like a big block going down the straightaway.
Yeah, I love it. It was always in the back so you could hear it by itself.
Okay.
But so I think opening up the rules to allow more engines is the right track. If you're going to say stock untouched engines, well, then you need a full-time engine tech guy who's going to be the same guy at every national who knows those motors, which means you're going to have to pay somebody
Yep.
And
Mhm.
if that's going to be the case, then what do you figure it's going to cost Western states on average, say $10 per racer, assuming they have 150 cars? That'd be $1,500 for the guy to show up on a race weekend. And I think to have a technical expert, subject matter expert like that, I think that's about what it would take to have him show up for a weekend. And on top of paying him $1,500, you can take care of his accommodations.
To me, 100% of stock is air cleaner to oil pan. I want the whole air box on
Right.
that son of a gun.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we put velocity stacks on there to speed
Yep.
the air up going in, to trick it into thinking it was RAM.
Well, except for one, 4 or 5 race session where I built that trick side intake
cool.
system.
It was really
Well-
nice until it wasn't.
We caught a lot of hell for that too. Oh, it's illegal. Well, it's actually how the bike is designed to run.
So, to fill the listener in who doesn't know, we took a stock ZX10 airbox, which in a dwarf car would be facing the wrong way. It's facing the side of the car, not the front of the bike. And then I custom molded a pretty trick looking
It was.
fiberglass intake to make the air turn 90 degrees to go into the stock airbox. Because we talked to Sean and he said, Kawasaki spent millions of dollars developing that airbox and the velocity stacks that are inside the airbox. You're not smarter than they are, and that will build more power. I think he was right. I think it ran pretty damn good
He was.
until we crushed it.
It did. Well, until Dustin Dumas broke an axle and spun in front of us, and I launched over he spun around in front of us, and I launched over the front tire of his car and endoed the car. That killed that car.
But yeah,
They went another $5,000 for a chassis.
$5,000. Yep. Good thing we had a backup chassis, right?
back up being the
Hey,
old
we switched
chassis.
it quick too.
We did. We switched that car over. Yeah, backup being the old chassis, and we switched that over in 2 nights?
So,
Basically, yeah, about 48 hours.
the other instance where I'll give Frank Monroe his due is, I think he's right in that car counts are dropping. Dwarf car counts, like he said that very first national they had 96 cars in one class. You would be hard put to get 96 total cars national, right? That's what 30 years later,
In 3 classes.
and that's not growth. That's the opposite of growth. So in any sport or any business, it's grow or die. So in 30 years, if you haven't grown, well, you need to look at what you're doing. I think the idea is you need to attract more racers to your sport. And I will give you a couple suggestions, Frank, if you're listening, or if someone wants to send this to Frank, is set up a full-on micro or motorcycle-powered race night. So you have dwarf cars, you have lightning sprints, you have micro sprints, and I would do youth sprints. Now youth dwarfs, sorry. So dwarf car is pretty self-explanatory. You have a dwarf car, they have sportsman, vet, and pro under Western States rules. So there's basically 3 classes there. You have lightning sprints, which is a class unto itself. Generally, those guys run 1,200 motors on alcohol, mostly. Some are 1,000 cc with a wing. And it's basically a micro or a midget chassis with a motorcycle power plant. And then there's the micro sprints, which are what you see at Tulsa Shootout and Millbridge and a lot of those. And those are 600 cc powered, non-wing, purpose-built chassis for the most part. Some of them are running midget chassis that are modified to run the motorcycle motors. But it's a big class unto itself. And then what I call junior or youth dwarfs, which is let the dwarf cars run under a limited set of rules, whereas don't allow the 1,000 cc motors, don't allow the 1,200 cc motors, limit them to the 600 cc sport bike motors, which are plenty powerful enough on their own. And I would also limit them to DOT tires. Don't let them run the Hoosiers. They got to run DOT street tires. But other than that, make the rules the same as the rest of the dwarf class. because then you now allow the junior or youth driver to have a car that he can grow into. And when they're ready to move up into big boy class, then they put a motor in it, put tires on, and other than that, it's a legal car. And that's a class that's not invented. There's nobody who has anything like that anywhere. But if you put together a race like that, race night like that, you would probably pull 400 cars, maybe 500 cars.
Well, and to your point on the 600, a 2024 GSX-R 600 is now 120 horsepower. And you're talking, what were we scaling, Phil? 1200?
No, we no. Oh, no. Well, depending on the driver, but I mean, we scaled our car at anywhere between 1,010 and 1,040 pounds.
The rule
without the driver in it.
Better than 10 to 1.
Yeah.
The rule in Western states is 1,000 pounds without the driver. And then maybe force the
1,000 pounds without the driver.
Force
So
the youth.
1.2 horsepower per pound. That's still a rocket ship.
Well, and maybe have the youth driver or junior driver put 100 pounds on. Make them run 1,100 pounds without the driver. Because most of those kids are, 80 pounds?
Yeah.
Might want to throw a little extra weight on it.
Well, I think you have it, though. I mean, you can stay the 1,000 pound, like the standard 1,000 cc car, but put them on a DOT or a wear rated tire, not the Hoosier. Because again, it takes it back down to traction's the issue, not your horsepower.
Right.
And then if you did that, you'd have an amazing race weekend. On a 2-day show, you would have a ton of cars. You wouldn't need any support divisions. You're your own race. But the other flip side of that is over 30 years, using Frank Monroe's metric of it being 30 years, purses have not gone up. But everything else has. Everything from fuel to get to the track, to buy sandwiches, to buy Hoosiers,
Truck,
to buy
trailer,
to
everything.
buy everything has gone up, but the purses have not kept pace, and that's on you as a race director, series director, promoter, and you can't afford it. Go out, get sponsors. If you have a decent product, which I really think Dwarf Cars are already a decent product and could be improved on, like what I talked about, put on a full show. Then you go out and you get, Amsoil as a sponsor. You go out and get Yamaha or Suzuki or Kawasaki as a sponsor. Make a deal with Flow Racing where they're broadcasting a series. There's tons of ways you could increase the revenue for the series, pass some of that back on to the racers, and put some more money in your pocket, Frank. But you've reached a comfort zone where you're at, and now you're complaining because it's starting to taper off. And I think a lot of that's economy driven. People now,
it's not just Dwarf Cars; it's every sport.
Yeah, car counts across the border. Car count at the last Chili Bowl was down, and that's all economy driven. And I think the economy has struggled since 2020, mostly because of COVID. But I think the economy is starting to recover. And I think that, people are going to have more disposable income, and more disposable income means more race cars. But and if you want people to come out to your race, you're going to have to pay them to race. And that means purses. Make it worth a while, especially if you're going to run a 2 or 3 day show.
Yeah, I mean, we used to go do the 2-day shows and then, race Friday night, Saturday night, and go for Thursday practice. And it was not uncommon for tow money and all the expenses and, making sure you guys had food, at the trailer whenever you needed it. I mean, it was not uncommon for me to drop $1,200-$1,500 for a weekend.
And that was doing it on a shoestring. We, at that price,
we were shoestringing it. We were sleeping in the tow trailer.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing was, and it still is, a lot of times, is these races are an event. So we went to several of them, and we had a blast. And it was less about what happened on the track, and more about what happened in the pits.
My big toe still remembers. Mr. Crimp.
Some of the clubs, and I will call them out right now. The Nevada guys, when we went out to Pahrump,
Rocket.
Oh my God.
They welcomed us with open arms. They put on a full-on show. They put on a spread. It was a party. We had a blast. I'd never felt more welcome in my life. And, we did some partying in the pits.
We did.
All three of
Oh
us.
God, did we? Whew.
And we broke some parts.
Hey,
Where'd that part go?
where'd Nerf bar go? Yeah,
One day my daughter will appreciate those videos.
Yeah.
I don't think that Nerf bar has come down yet at a low Earth orbit.
I don't. Did anybody ever see it come off?
Yes, I watched it.
No, I watched the videos.
We watched it launch into the air down in turn 2. I mean, it went 100 feet if it went an inch.
Jesus, I don't remember it going off, but
No, somebody
That's
ran it
funny.
over after you lost it. Somebody else ran it over, and it went to the moon, baby.
and I remember Neilden sticks his head in and he goes, "You got no front bumper." I'm like, "Okay." He goes, "Don't hit anybody." I was like, "Okay."
I'm like, I'm out of parts, man.
But I mean,
Don't tell up the nose anymore.
I will call out the people who were responsible for that and name them by name.
Richie Abbott.
Richie Abbott, Stacy Woods, James Lassiter.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember the guy's name. Ran the 40 car.
Wasn't it Richie's shop that we
the
fixed the toe pig in?
No, it was the guy in the 40 car. What was his name?
for the life of me, I can't pull it up, guys. Man, I'm so sorry.
Y'all keep talking. I'll find this shit right now. I have Facebook.
So one of the things that happened on our way out there was Neilden and I were towing, and we had 2 race cars in the trailer, and we got to State Line, and Neilden said to me, "Do you hear that? Do you feel it?" And up to that point. And then as soon as he said it, I'm like, yeah, that sounds like a wheel bearing. And we pulled into truck stop, and one side was screaming hot, and the other side not so much. And we're like, wheel bearing going on the tow rig. And we got back on the highway, and it got worse and worse and worse. And we're doing 30 miles an hour on the 15, just listening to this bearing eat itself on the truck. And
there's nowhere to stop.
no, it would
No.
The
So
desert or the desert.
I called up Richie Abbott and said, "Hey, can you find us a place, a shop or somewhere where we can work on this thing? You know, me and Neilden know how to fix it, but we just need a place to work on it." And he said, "Yeah, let me call you back." Called back 10 minutes later. He's like, Derek Rossi was the guy's name.
That's it, Derek
There it
Rossi.
is. There it is.
Hey,
You freaking phone.
kidneys.
I just had his picture up.
Yeah. He goes, "Yeah, I talked to Derek Rossi. He's got a shop. So come to my house, and Ridge, which is Richie's son, will meet you, and he'll take you over to Derek." So we pulled up in front of Richie's house, honked the horn. Ridge Abbott hopped on a little scooter and
Like
led us.
golf cart? Or
It was a
something?
little like moped or something, and took us over to Derek Rossi's house, which was 3 or 4 blocks away. And we pull up, and and we pull up in front of there, and Derek's like, "Hey, I got company over for dinner." We're like, "Oh man, hey, sorry, we didn't know that." And he goes, No. He goes, "I'm just telling you that
Doors
because
open. There's the box.
yeah." He's, "I'm
Let me
telling
know
you,
what you need.
he says, I can't help you. I'll be inside eating dinner. There's the toolbox. There's the shop." And he tosses me the keys to his personal truck. He goes, "Here, if you need to go get parts, take my truck." And we hunted down the parts and got the thing fixed. And like I said, they just opened up welcomed us with open arms. Like I said, just literally opened the shop
Well,
up to.
I believe that was the first time you or I had met Derek.
Yeah, we had never even laid eyes on
Yeah,
him up to that
never
point.
met the guy. He didn't know us from Tom, Dick, or Harry.
And if I'm not mistaken, we drank a little bit of firewater with him that weekend, didn't we?
I'm not
Who
sure.
did we not drink with?
Yeah, it became a blur.
Yeah.
It was a
I
fun
do-
blur.
I do remember that as I was driving comfy chase home, I looked over at Heather and said, God damn, I've never driven this hungover in my life.
Oh, dude, they broke out some jars of some clear stuff that tasted like Jolly Ranchers. And
oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm
It was delicious.
I'm pretty sure it was race fuel.
Yeah. I know that we got up the next
seasoning pill.
when we got up on the morning to go home, I was like, I don't know if I'm okay to drive.
It's straight all the way to California. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
But that's a community that we even know one of our local guys here that left the local group and went and raced almost solely with them.
Yep.
For a season or two.
He did.
And won a championship with them.
Yep.
Remember, right?
I do. Yeah, I do. I do believe so.
Well,
that speaks volumes to it speaks volumes to that group of guys, though. I mean, literally, I mean, just bam, whatever you need, we got you.
The other thing I want to call out that was kind of cool was at that point we had a YouTube channel where we were doing a lot of metal fabrication stuff called Metal Manglers, and we were doing a lot of dwarf car coverage, and we met our first fan at Pahrump, and it was
I remember that.
It was Race.
Are you the Metal Manglers?
It was a young man named Race Shelton, and he left. He passed on not long afterwards. Rest in peace. But super cool guy. It was really fun. He was
really
just
cool guy.
He was geeked out to meet us. I'm like, really? Us?
Really? We're just dudes. Us? This guy's ugly and he's uglier, and
yeah. And we signed
the first and only signed memorabilia.
And we signed
that's right.
We signed that missing Nerf bar.
Signed that
custom hood.
We signed that. We signed that hood. Didn't we sign a hood and give it to him too?
No, it was.
Didn't the hood get the Nerf bar? That's right.
The hood went to Tim Spencer.
That's right. The hood went to Tim Spencer
on a different car.
On a different car, yeah. The crumpled hood.
Well, you crumpled everything in that car, to be fair.
Yeah.
So that's my solution, and I'm pretty sure you guys agree with me, is bigger purses. Get some contingency money from Hoosier, since we all have to run Hoosiers. There should be bigger contingency money paid than what is being paid. And I know the Hoosier deal a little bit more than some, and I know that Hoosier is paying some money to Western states, and I don't think all of it's going back to the racer. So sorry, Frank, got to keep calling you out just because we speak the truth around here. And if you want to come on here and if you want to come on here and defend your stance, we're all about it. Reach out to us and we'll bring you on here. Because I'm sure after all the crap I've talked about Frank Monroe that he's going to hear about this. I say what I say, and I will say it here, and I'll say it to your face, even though I'm in Kentucky. The health of dwarf cars is subpar, in my opinion. I won't name the track, but we watched a track that we used to see 25 dwarf cars, and they had 9 just recently.
Mm-hmm. And they called that a good night.
I know Barona's getting ready to do a 2-day national, and I hope they get 1,000 dwarf cars for that race. You know,
it would be awesome.
But you got to call out the organizers. Is you have to work. This is a year-round thing. If you're going to hold a national, a 2 or 3 day race, you need to be working on it now for a race 11, 12 months from now. To line up trophy sponsors, line up T-shirt sponsors, line up T-shirt designs, line up T-shirt vendors, get all of your purse sponsors in place. Get everything lined up, make it an attractive race, and make it so that people want to come, whether it's for the prestige or for the prize money or whatever. Instead of going, if everybody wasn't running built motors, they could afford to run more races. That's not it. That is not why people are racing. I think you're pissing up the wrong tree if you're calling engine expense as the limiting factor. Because let's take it back to sprint cars again, where that chassis is about the same as a dwarf car, and you got a $50, $60, $70, even $80,000 motor in it, but they're running full fields. They're running full fields because the purses are there.
Yeah.
We all know it takes money to win money. But you put up more money, you generally get more cars. And here's the thing. I don't know if I've ever had an open back gate for the driver for an event.
I don't understand what you mean.
Maybe that's something to look at. The driver's in free.
Yeah.
Crew only.
I looked at the expense of a dwarf car. Initially, it was what, $185 entry fee for a 2-day race. On top of that, your driver's got to buy a pit pass. All of the crew members got to buy pit passes. Any of your family members who aren't in the pits are going to be in the stands. So for 2-day race, let's say you have 3 crew members and 3 people in the stands. That $185 just turned into $500, $600.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then your tow, then your tow out.
So
And
that's if you don't break any. And
if you don't break anything, and
a minimum, you're going to put a right rear on that car for the race. That's one of the things.
2 new right rears, but we
didn't talk about that, but that's one of the attractions of a dwarf car is they don't eat tires because they're such a lightweight car. Pretty hard to use your tire as things go. So you're pretty much replacing right rears pretty much every race. So if on a 2-day show, you're going to go through 2 right rears. Left rear, you get 2, 3, maybe 4 races out. Front tires will last you a season if you don't poke a hole in them.
Oh, left front lasts all season. As a matter of fact, we used to run left front for 2 seasons, and then the right front we would change out if we had to, we would change the right front out halfway through the season, depending on how
not so
depending
much
if we got
because
it, we got into a
just
racing
'cause,
track.
well,
It's heat cycles.
You're running pump
Get a little
gas by rule.
By rule.
And so, you're on that aspect, the expenses are being controlled. The shock rule is pretty limited. And that, you can't spend a lot of money on shocks, which I think is the other area of a race car where you can spend a ton of money. Look at modifieds and what they're spending on shocks, what sprint cars and midgets and late models are spending on shocks.
Oh, yeah. The sky's the limit. You give an open budget, you're going to get open limit.
Well, I mean, look at the one aspect of the motor, and the reason why we experimented with that Ram setup, that Ram Air setup that you made, Marshall, was because the velocity stack system was what, $750 was the velocity stack system for the ZX10.
Build it a velocity stack system, which actually is a pretty cool piece. I mean, the machining.
It was phenomenal. But
it was
as Sean sat there and said, he goes, "Well,
one-off
Kawasaki's already spent millions of dollars."
One-off air cleaner that you could only get from one source. That was air cleaner was what, $200 just for the filter element. The header.
No. The filter element was $65. It was $65 for the filter element, but the whole assembly, the top and the bottom and everything to put it all together was like $175, I think it was.
And a header was $800 by the time you got it all done with a muffler and everything.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. The header was $900, yeah. And with that air filter element, if you remember correctly, guys, we had 4 of them. We would run 1 in practice, we had 4 of them because we run 1 in practice, 1 in the heat, 1 in the main, and then we had 1 as a spare, just as an extra. So, I mean, it gets expensive.
But like I said, other than that, brakes were terrible expense. Like I said, a set of brake pads last year's season.
Did we ever
even more.
change the pads?
Yeah, we did change pads. We put new pads on the car every season.
I mean, probably one of the biggest expense was wheels because we kept bending them.
Shush.
Oh yeah.
We got real good at making bumpers.
We did. That saved us a lot of money.
Very good.
That saved us a lot of money.
So, like I said, that's sir. I'm welcome. You know, if you guys have any different ideas, what I'm saying is, if you want more cars, pay more money.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is if you're talking about wanting to make it where it's not expensive, start looking at the cost of everything we just talked about. You know, stock is stock. You got to run stock air cleaner. Yes, you can build a ram air system for it. That eliminates what, $1,000 right off the top there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's no way around that. There's no way around the header.
I'm going to go with exhaust. Exhaust is.
There's no way that
Yeah,
you have to.
yeah. You got to spend that much money, but and then there's other areas you can take and make it less expensive. I just looking at it. I mean, I guess I've not been in it, but $7,000 for a dwarf car chassis, that's just a lot of money.
Well, I mean, let's call it what it is. If it's
There's a lot
chromoly,
of money for anything.
if it's chromoly, you're spending what, $400 or $500 for material for something you're charging $7,000 for. And I know I sound like the worst of the customers that I hate in my field of business, but the thing is that yeah, you need to pay the craftsman for what they're doing. You know, to TIG weld a chassis like that is probably 2, maybe 3 solid days of TIG welding, and that's after you've fit it and cut and coped all the notches and everything and got it all fit together. It's not a small enterprise, but I think, you know, if you talk about, you know, bringing the cost down, that's one area that could be done for sure. A DNR costs $7,000 because an M&M costs $7,000 because a B&B costs $7,000 because a Diamond costs $7,000. If they, you know, all agreed to bring their costs down, I think that would help out a lot. But I instead of saying to manufacturers, you know, and the engine suppliers, hey, you guys got to bring your costs down. Well, how about bringing the revenue up? Bring your purses and your tow money up, and quit being an isolationist. Right. Western states has always been Western states, totally unaffiliated with anything else. IMCA has adopted mod lights as a class, and I think if you push the issue a little bit, you could get a national organization like IMCA to adopt dwarf cars as a class. And if you did that, then the growth potential is huge. But then put on, you know, associate yourself with the lightning sprints and with the micro sprints and bring in a junior division to groom your upcoming racers, and then start having, you know, a 2 or 3 day national, like what, you know, we described. And I think you're going to help out the health of your sport a lot.
Well, there we go. Dirty Sliders have again solved race car problems.
Done.
Yeah. Hey, we figured out the modified engine situation real easy. So this was nothing.
Yeah, this was easy.
What else do we fix? Oh, catch fences, angry drivers.
Catch fences.
We fixed that.
Hey, they listened to us because they banned that guy.
I don't think we had anything to do with that, but it's a nice thought.
Hey, you know, give us a little credit.
Hey, it could have
Very
been.
little.
Could have been, you know.
All
Coincidence
three people that are watching this video, you know, give us a thumbs up if, you know, tell us, hey,
to this end.
if you've made it this far, we really appreciate you. Thank you for being here. And again, we are 3 idiots that had absolutely nothing about everything.
And actually put together a list of our socials because I've been terrible about promoting those. So let me pull that.
Wow.
You know, without Bridger here.
It's on the computer and you lost it.
So on Instagram, we are at dirty.sliders. Twitter, we are Dirty Sliders. On Patreon, we are patreon.com/Dirty Sliders podcast. Email dirtysliders7@gmail.com, and Dirty Sliders on Facebook. There's a common theme there. It's Dirty Sliders. So if you search us,
hey, what are we on YouTube?
We are Dirty Sliders on YouTube. So if you go to any social media and search Dirty Sliders, you're probably going to see one of our ugly mugs on there. And please like, comment, subscribe. please subscribe. It really helps us out with the algorithm, and it costs you nothing. We are trying to make this show grow, and we appreciate all the help that you give us, but we sure could use a little more.
And please, either thumbs up or thumbs down. If you click the thumbs down, click it twice.
Yes, please.
Make sure we know that you don't like us.
And then a little teaser on an upcoming show. We're going to talk about AI and its impact on racing, specifically dirt track racing.
Uh-oh. Have you guys not seen Terminator?
Skynet's a real thing. What can I tell you?
I know, I got it here.
All right.
All right, guys.
Thanks for coming on, guys. Have a great night.
Love you, boys. Later.
Take care, brother.